Now you have all these people there. Now what? And if you don't have the people there, how can you get the range to be another revenue stream for you? So overall, like studies have shown that 50% of people do begin their journey, even though you guys proved that wrong in this room alone. But I'd like to think that holistically speaking, 50% of people begin their journey at a driving range. So if you obviously have heard of Top Golf, most people in some cases begin their journey at a place like a Top Golf. Maybe they're introduced to golf for the first time, especially during COVID, swinging a golf club for the first time. But typically you're going to Top Golf, at least I do. I don't usually go to work on my golf game. I go to work on like what beverages I like, what food I like to eat, things like that. But I'll go to a Top Tracer range 7 to 9 times more in a year. So the retention from a Top Tracer range or technology on the range in general is obviously a lot higher as opposed to just being introduced to the game overall. So from our perspective, from a Top Tracer business point of view, we've actually seen 81% of our customers have said that they've seen growth up 11% since 2022. So 81% of our customers say they saw new players coming to the game of golf. Do you think that's accurate based on what you guys are seeing on your driving ranges? I hear a lot of people say new demographics, families, women. And then this is probably the most astounding stat, 4.6 million hours. Now this is on a global scale. 4.6 million hours were played on Top Tracer screens globally in the month of September. So you think of the month of September, it's the end of summer, beginning of spring. There's that transition of people going back to school, families getting into their routines for the school year. So for the month of September to have 4.6 million hours of activity on base, that's pretty impressive. The next, actually, that's just below 4.7 in June. So just think about that for a minute. So overall, John, you're a great example of increased revenue at the range, increased traffic at the range. What technology did you put in place? You mentioned your family roots, your generation 3, third generation, I think you said.
Correct.
How did you implement technology while still staying true to your family roots?
Yeah, I thought a lot about preparing for this, and I imagine sitting in your shoes, right? You probably have the same challenge that we had. You had existing business, an incredibly loyal clientele, and if they were in the room, I would say this to them as well. Grumpy old men who loved playing at that golf course, loved it exactly the way it was, would say to me often, love what you're doing, don't change it too much, which means don't touch it at all. They love to come on a Wednesday afternoon and they have the whole place to themselves, which they love, but it's the worst thing for a golf course. And I was thinking about this as well. It's something that Bob said yesterday. He had this opportunity to look like he stopped thinking about family. And I had the opportunity as a fresh set of eyes to come in and look, do we need to be a golf course at all? That's the lens that I originally looked through. And when I did the research, I saw that there were 800 golf courses that closed in the decades pre-COVID, that closed and 2,400 driving ranges. So that was an opportunity to look at the opportunity for me to go back to the family and say, hey, this is areas. In fact, we shouldn't sell it to Amazon, make a warehouse out of it. We should continue the legacy, and everyone passionate about so many of the family members still working in business and converting and breathing new life into the golf course, which I often say, and it was like the sleeping giant. It was always there. The bones were there, but we just needed to put more energy in and create that, as you just said, the new golfers, the new demographics, and find a place for everyone to live together in harmony. That's probably the biggest challenge, but we successfully did so. So that's part of the story that I'm here to share with you today. So that's the range that we built. We knew immediately that it needed to be tech forward, because we also knew, and you'll probably do this when you're doing your own pro forma, I didn't really even account for my customers hitting balls, because I just knew the way that they approached it. A lot of them were rushed to the tee time, come right off we're a public course, come right off the construction site, get right to the first tee. So I accommodated a warm-up bucket. When I did my numbers and projections, I counted an entirely new audience, and looking at not even competing with other driving ranges, but competing with other entertainment venues. Where do people go in the area for birthday parties and celebrations, life celebrations, remembrances, corporate events? Entirely different group, and that's exactly really helpful played out. And in order to do so, we really needed to go tech forward. We needed something to trace. So we were really proud to have the top tracer technology. We also use the Power T, pop-up T, which is, tremendous. I wasn't sure at first how that was going to play out, and it's just universally loved by everyone. So
you mentioned a key word, John. You mentioned the word change, and you talked about those family roots of like these grumpy old men that are resistant to change. We hear it all the time. Like, well, it's something different. It's change. You're selling change. Like we're selling change to your driver. You're selling change to your customers. How did you do that? And did they finally, obviously they finally adapted, you increased your revenue 4 times the amount that you did when you started. So how did you implement that change?
Many of you ever seen that show, Bar Rescue, right? Oh, it's one of my favorite shows. It's the same story. Every single episode's the same story. A business that is afraid to lose their core business because they think they're the bread and butter, but they don't realize they're actually killing it. They're choking it from inside. And so that was the challenge. We wanted to find a place for that core, and we did exactly that. We recognized when we expanded our service offerings, they just want a Budweiser and a hot dog. It's fine. We have a Reuben. That's I have a Reuben. So you don't have to eat it. You stick with your hot dog and your beer. We didn't change anything for their experience. We really didn't change any of the aspects of tea times that they've held for 30 years. We preserved those. You had the right of first refusal too. We went a long way. We had a town hall meeting, said this is something that the family wants to invest in. This is where we need to go, but this is the next generation. And so that they went along a little at first, very, very resistant, but ultimately when they saw the change that happened, when they see what it's like today, how it's thriving, how it's a completely different energy there. Mm-hmm. They've certainly embraced it. Now, those same members now take their grandkids to the driving range. They celebrate their 70th birthday party at the drive right next to the 7-year-old birthday party. So they finally came around to really recognizing that this is more of a community than just this independent place. And the last thing I'll say on that is many of the customers today, we've been here 50 years, never stepped on the property and didn't even know we existed until we put this facility in place.
That's awesome. Great to hear, and congrats on your success. I was going to say, like, now you have the grandpa bringing his grandchild and being introduced to the game of golf. So, last question, then I want to move over to the business side with Johan. But how did you implement? What did you see as far as your ROI goes once you implemented the technology? Like, when was the switch kind of flip for you?
Yeah, so I was thinking again. We just did some back to the envelope metrics. Of course, we had the big boom in COVID. So prior to COVID, we probably saw a 25%, 30% boost in golf course revenues. We built our driving range, started the breaking ground in 2021. We didn't hit our first golf ball until 2022. And then that year, just to give you a round number, just give you a general sense, the revenue we generated immediately represented about a third of the investment for the whole to talk tracer facility, driving business you see there. In the second year, our gross revenues exceeded the entire investment of the building. And in the third year, fourth year, et cetera, continued there. So we went from 30% growth, COVID, maintained that 10% growth the next year, and then 30%, 40%, overall 75% impact, or as we said earlier, 4x gross revenues from that traditional. We had peaked in the business around 2008, 2009, 2010, and maintained a nice steady growth, but it was starting to nadir. And COVID, of course, helped us impact. My first instinct was COVID's going to be a bubble. We'll never be able to maintain that. And the exact opposite has happened for us. But again, I can't speak up to it's the demographic. The driving range and food and beverage, if you think about the margins and food, specifically the alcohol part of it, it's just, it's a great
really weird.
Yes.
Not everything has to include beer and food, so.
Well, yeah, I agree.
We'll have that argument another time. Johan, I want to move over to you when it comes to business solutions, like a sweet spot and like a range integration. What kind of average revenue increase do you see? Now, I know your company is still in its infancy stages, and you have quite a few customers over here in some of the states here. But what have you typically seen as far as that, again, guaranteed revenue?
We see an average of around 20% in the first year already. But It's, it's a number, so it's easier almost to break it down a bit, how we achieve that number. Data is very vague when you're talking about data. Data is information, obviously, and I'm going to say something that probably disqualifies me from this room. For the last 8 years, I've been working with tennis. I know that's probably a foul word in this room, so.
We welcome everybody. So
that's the world of golf. Appreciate that. But the funny thing is that tennis had a decrease of influx of new players. Golf hasn't had that problem, right? We all can agree on that one. So there has been very early adopters in trying to collect the data and being very direct in what kind of data they want to use. So prior to Sweetball, I've been working with our own venture connected to tennis. So we started working a lot with understanding what kind of data you can actually use in order to monetize. So this is a revenue journey, you can say. And activity data is also a vague word. What is it? It's actually, when are you arriving to the range? Which days? What time? Do you play? What kind of games do you play at your top place of range, for example? Do you play Angry Birds? Do you actually play virtual golf, etc.? That's activity data. That's to understand a player, right? And the activity in it. Then you have something we call player data or customer data, where you can collect every contact information, gender, age. You have where they live, if they have a family, etc. Because if you have that information, then you can start doing customer segments, and you can also do outreach. You can start building a community. You can loyalize them. You can endorse them because you have the actual contact information. That is probably the biggest hurdle for a lot of customers that we're facing today, that they're lacking this data at all. And then, and at last, when you have this consumption data too, if you have the player data, you have how they behave on the activity side of things, then you also understand how they consume at your venue. How much bucket of balls do they consume? Do they book online? Do they buy a new glove? Do they order hamburgers or a beer? All that data together, you can do a lot of things to monetize. So this is just a simple example of how we work with our customers in different phases. So in the beginning, we help them to get the activity data and to understand that. Then we move on to help them build a community. And then we help them to understand how they should offer a new glove at the right time to the right player because they haven't bought one in 3 months, for example.
So the key buzzword that I think we should call this, instead of TechCon, it should be like DataCon, because I feel like everybody throws the word data out there. It's we've heard it since day one, since we started Top Racer. We need customer data, we need data, but who uses data in their day-to-day operations? I'm assuming you all use data in some way, shape, or form. Do you know what data you're using? And when you ask like your vendors, like, I want data, like, do you know specifically what you're asking them for and how do you use it? Or you just say like, give me everything and anything and I'll sift it out later? Anybody? Kat, how do you use it?
We track when someone has been there for a while, the property for a while.
And how do you know, do you track how that works as far as like, do they give them a special coupon? Do you?
Yeah, you get invitation.
Okay.
Our Top Racer.
Haven't seen you in a while. It's kind of like going to the gym.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great example.
Yep, exactly. So
Del Radcliffe's company.
So with this boom in golf, and we're so focused, historically on the golf course, the range has always been typically forgotten, but now we're treating it really as a separate business, which I know you do, and some people have its own separate brand, where the range is one brand of their business, and then you have your facility overall. So John, how do you operate your range as its own separate business, and what kind of data, keyword data, are you using to make your business decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we look at each division now, it's its own profit center. So golf is its own standalone. Green grass golf, we have the driving range and we have the restaurant. So those are three different separate entities, even though, a Venn diagram with them, there'd be a direct overlap with all of them. But really focus on those as independent running structures as if they're running in their own P&L. And our goal is to make those pretty equal in revenues. And we've been successful in doing so. They're standalone entities. But one of the challenges that we had early on, and that was seeing all the data in the GMS evolution. It's been phenomenal to be here. But we cobbled together our own solution because there wasn't any. There wasn't any way to book a driving range that didn't look like a tea time. A driving range outing is by an hour, right? We book it for 2 hours. It just didn't work. We tried to call it a T-Snap or one of the softwares we used. So what we created is webhooks that allowed all those POS systems to speak together and then essentially give us data so that we can see who's a super user. A super user is somebody who goes to the driving range, who plays green grass golf, who eats, who brings his grandkids to a party, who comes to the dart night in the wintertime and the shoulder season. So that's exactly how we use it. But again, it was a clunky system we created. It's just listening to that presentation, counting 2 pages of notes about how amazing and how they've come so far in 2 years. But that's the future. It really truly is. Just as you said, you need to know how many left-handed people drink IPAs on Tuesdays. Right? It just changes the whole dynamic, and the customers appreciate that as well. They get it. They understand. They feel appreciated.
I was gonna say, it sounds like your driving range is more, people are paying for an experience and they're willing to pay for that experience more often.
Absolutely, absolutely. And back to, not to belabor the point, but I can't speak enough about, you used the word community a second ago. That's really what created the entire town, the Chamber of Commerce, our bank, this darling investment of their entire portfolio. They usually put buildings and commercial real estate, and all the board members, all they want to talk about is the impact that this has had on the community. Young kids, little kids. I do have one story I would appreciate. It goes back to one of those grandfathers who played all the time. He's actually a great golfer. And one day after his annual sort of weekly trip to take his young daughter, 7 and 5, for breakfast, he stopped by the range. And we were just putting it together. We had the top tracer going, we had the power tee, and he's like, "Can I try it out?" And sure enough, so they're playing Angry Birds, having a blast. The kids were, and he's just buying bucket after bucket. Oh, this is good. Yeah, this is gonna work. That was my first instinct on that. But there was this moment, sort of this watershed moment, I think, where they said, "Grandpa, why don't you hit a ball?" And he's a great golfer. He got up and hit, and to them, he was like Tiger Woods. They'd never seen grandfather hit a ball before. And dawned on me, well, how would they? They're 75. They're not taking the golf course. It's not taking the Thursday lead. It's not taking the driving range. And so that unlocked everything. That's what we see every day happening in the golf course. The father-son, the kids, the grandparents, generations booking days, families booking days together. So it's a completely different atmosphere and different energy, but it's also the farm system from green grass golf. We've obviously seen it in the revenue increase, the translation over to the golf course. Sometimes they get a little hubris. They go to the driving range a couple times and they think they're ready for green grass. We got to work on that. They're not quite there yet, but that's exactly what's happening.
And if your tee sheet is full, if someone's pulling up, like obviously tee sheets are at a premium nowadays, but if your tee sheet's full, do you offer, hey, we don't have any spot available for you, but you can certainly go play virtual golf on the top tracer race. Do people take you up on that?
Absolutely, all the time. In fact, we had one group that remember they would play on a regular basis. And they had a bachelor party. There were probably 5 or 6 of them. They wanted to just do their own little scrambling course. And they got rained out, and so we put them on the driving range. They kept the whole event. They had a blast. They played at St. Andrews for 4 hours. They had a close pin. And the next year, and the next year, and the next year, they didn't even book green grass golf anymore. They just go to the driving range. It became their annual thing. One of the other advancements too, or something like that, is happening now more and more. The hole-in-one insurance that you can get on your golf course. Now, Top Tracer allows that, or insurance companies, because the technology is so validated, you can insure for like $5,000, $10,000 and have a closed pin contest. So that drives incredible excitement around the bachelor party. We do those all the time.
And have you had to use that insurance at all?
Not. No, we're just now looking into that. Partner Jim. Yeah, we're just now trying to see how we get that into go forward.
I love your success stories and examples, and exactly what we see from a global perspective. It's another option. It's another business on your driving range. I mean, you saw the picture had snow in it, so Your leagues are very successful in the off-season months instead of being on the course. Obviously, they're at the range. But going back to the data portion, Johan, how does this sweet spot tool gather information as it pertains to data? So these, if I'm not mistaken, are all different points of a range that you can gather data.
Do you like the picture?
It's very European. I'm just
Yeah.
going over
We try our best. But this is a typical driving range, and in order to try to be more, not be as vague about what data is, we wanted to showcase and visualize an ecosystem of data, because a little bit also what John said, like you can build a lot of webhooks, you can use a lot of different systems, and I have the opportunity obviously here to present a little bit what Sweetpost is doing and what we believe in terms of an ecosystem and how it can provide a value for you guys. So this is the typical driving range, and if you add the different entities onto it, then you see like, okay, but we have top price range with base, where we have the inventory, you can sell buckets, you can sell time, obviously. Then you have a simulator, you have a reception where you can do bookings, you can it's shops and whatever. You have the ball dispenser provided through Rain Servant, which is also a partnership with us. We integrate to all Rain Servant machines. They're providing a solution for us. In the operations team, you're using our backend system, obviously, to gather all the data and to see how you can use it. And online, people are using an app. And I would say, like, starting there first and all, I think the biggest hurdle that we're facing is to get people to download an app. Because like the older generation is, they want to use this physical range card. We understand that. So we are trying to bridge that. Obviously, we're developing for the new majority, the youth generation. We like the youth in that sense. But we have seen a lot of great improvement because the venue itself pushes the older generation actually to download that, because they know that they can, get a better user experience. So what happens here is that we have all these, I call it like footprints, because in order to get data, you need to have footprints, right? So we need to leave the footprints somehow to get the data. So we're looking to capture revenue, activity, and consumption data. So if you press to the next button also, we can see that in every instance, there's a sweet spot product. So whenever a customer is moving around here, doing something, we will capture data, how they behave. It's almost like a pattern of behavior, how they move. And in this forum, obviously, like in Europe, we also have a T-sheet. It's not launched in the US yet. But in Europe, when we're having it, we can actually follow and track how many people are moving to on-grass, or how many people are like starting to be more on the range only. So when having this ecosystem, you can do a lot of great things. So a lot of our customers are using it today. We're about to develop an AI bot directly into the system where you can ask questions like, I have this data, please make me recommendations on new memberships. And I want to build a loyalty program, for example. You can use that today with AI when you have all the data. It's not fragmented. You have everything in the same backend. It's yours. You own it. So I think the best part to describe data and what it can offer you is you can sell the right product to the right person at the right time. That's data, I would say.
Yeah, just to add, it's going to sound like an underhand pitch, but just to demonstrate how valuable that is, we tried to do it ourselves because we knew we needed it as a stopgap. We've been having conversations about our go forward with a more sophisticated software, but I can't emphasize enough how important that is to be able to understand how you're running your business.
Well, and the other thing too is I feel when we talk about why haven't you done technology, why haven't you implemented it? It might be a cost thing initially, but you can obviously do a gradual approach. But things like automation and obviously having that data to figure out what automations you're going to put in, it really does help from an operator side. So you could book a bay online, go to a top tracer screen, scan a QR code, walls dispense, and not have to talk to a human, which I'm all about the human interaction. Those of you who know me, I love interaction face to face, but from an operator standpoint, that's probably a pretty good headache to relieve yourself of, I would think.
Absolutely. And I think like on the note, what John said, all the players, the customers are expecting today.
Mm-hmm.
they do. Like, they want us to be relevant towards them. They want to be approached with things so you understand them. The worst thing that can happen is that we don't use the opportunity of converting them to the videos on a long-standing point like that, because we have the influence of the players. It's awesome, but it's a big responsibility too.
It's a really good point, actually. This stat that I read in one of these, pulled from the National Golf Foundation about, they did a study in the under 40 demographic. Today, 80% of that demographic thinks golf is cool. That's compared to a generation who was likely in the 20% of 21. So you're right. The expectation is this generation is that state of the art. We can a QR reader to order food on the turn. Everything we just heard. That's exactly the expectation of what that generation is looking for from the experience.
Johan, welcome to Cool. I don't know what things we're saying on the tennis side of the world.
Being here.
Yeah. Welcome to Cool.
Thank you.
The player, I want to talk a little bit about one more thing about the data, the player data specifically. What have you heard from your developments with Sweet Spot? Like, what are people using that for? Like, again, it goes back to the, I want data. Like, what are they using it for? Is it solely business decisions? Is it to get them from the range to the golf course? What are you seeing?
I think the first thing, I didn't catch your name, sorry.
Kathy?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you made a great point on how you can start using data. If you can follow the pattern of a customer not returning, then you can give them an opportunity to return because you know them. So the first step that our customers is using data for is actually to have them, to retain them, to communicate them on a steady basis, to give them content, to give them, updates or whatever happening. And they also see that, oh, you haven't returned or you haven't played because you broke your pattern of playing. So right now I get an indication in my system. I say like, okay, I will invite them back. Maybe I will give them a voucher or I will give them an opportunity to play with a pro, whatever. If you have the data, that's how you use that in the first instance, I would say.
I like his super user too. That was good. Track games.
That's the key. Really, really promote and honor and lavish them with the attention they deserve. That's the key. That's what we want. We have, and there's plenty of, again, I don't want to malign it. I recognize every individual's right to utilize the course the way they want to. We have a group that we call the Trunk Slammers. They come in, they play, put their clubs in the trunk and drive off the property. That's okay. We love them. They're spending money too. So we just try to make sure we're marketing to the right people. Sending that group, the Trunk Slammer, all this information about stuff's not really going to move the needle. That's okay. So we market to the people that really will have the salient message will connect.
What kind of advice would you give somebody in the room that, we asked the question early on, if you haven't adopted technology in some fashion, why not? And there's obviously a variety of reasons why people haven't, but again, we talk about change and selling change and adopting the change, whether it's AI, whether it's data, whether it's technology. What advice would you give people that are on the fence that really haven't gone full in yet?
I think the first thing is to look at your demographics, your area, the foothold that you have in golf, and then look outside and find out, is there a big market? Where are people going to those life events? And can you enter in that market? The answer is yes, because it's someone else is doing it. Someone else is capitalizing. And instead of looking at what are the other golf courses doing, my competitors, those aren't competitors. It's families looking for something to do on Saturday night or a corporate outing. Think of there's a real estate firm in your town that has 25 people. Where are they going to go for client appreciation? Where are they going to go for team building? It's something that everyone can do. And that's the other part, is to think of it from that perspective. Building and growing the game is also something that Bob says, making it easy. So our goal when we talk to everyone on the driving range is just try to get that person to hit a 7-iron in the middle of the face one time. That's all we got to do. It's just one time, because they'll hit it again, and then they'll be a golfer for life. Trying to build that. That's the farm system. So the advice is not to think about marketing to golfers and market to your market, the demographics. How close are you to school? How close are you to relationship you have with the Chamber of Commerce? And speak to them about that. That's what I would do when you're building out your pro forma, your business model. And I think you'd be surprised to say there's a big market there. People are looking for something to do that's an entertainment event, and it's easy. This is easy for kids to do. They absolutely love it. Of course, you've seen it, but that would be the advice is to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, it's about being creative. I know we had a customer years ago that I spoke to that during COVID, it was, where do we send people? You really couldn't do anything. And, you know, kids were at home with parents working from home, and they actually opened up their driving range in the morning as kind of a makeshift daycare. And the kids go in the range. So, I mean, like, it's activity. And then afterwards they got a hot dog and a soda. So there's always like, just being creative, I think is a good approach as well. So any last closing remarks from you, Johan? And then I want to open it up to questions. I want to hear what you guys are doing too, because I know there's a couple of you that are creative, and we're all about sharing ideas. I mean, that's how we built Top Tracer in our community. We're very community focused, and it's because of people that are in this room and have shared their ideas, like John and Allison and Kathy and a couple others that are ready to go and just haven't pulled the plug yet. Rock. Sorry, I had to pick on you. Just making sure you're paying attention back there, but
I would say that sometimes data can feel a bit scary or complicated, but I think the right attitude towards it is back to what else. If you're curious, then you will find out. It's very easy to go about it. So be curious. It will open up a new world.
Your customers will always tell you what they want based on their habits, right?
Yeah.
Like, we initially sit down with folks. They're like, well, I don't know how to charge. Do I charge by the bucket? Do I charge by the hour? How am I going to manage it? It's like your customers are going to tell you what they want based on their actions. And you may go into it with one mindset, but 6 months down the road, you're going to come back and be like, okay, I'm going to do this instead. So be open-minded no matter what you're going to do from a technology perspective, whether it's range automation or whether it's technology on your range. Just be open-minded and educated, really. I also wanted to open up the floor for questions, but before I do that, I wanted to introduce my fellow Top Tracer teammates who are in the room. If you have any questions or want to know more about Top Tracer and how you can join our range revolution and be part of the inventors that invented range technology, Peter Berry, who you had the pleasure of hearing from last night for the opening reception, he's our Irishman. He oversees our global sales. Amanda Lamb, who's our global marketing director, and Mark Williams, who's our head of operations for all of our sales team in North America. So if you wouldn't mind just saying hello to them afterwards, we're happy to be here, answer any questions you have. But Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a comment before I open it up for questions. Really, I think it's worth saying just because John made a lot of good points, Johan makes a lot of good points, and you posed a good question to Johan as far as how do you interpret that data? What do you do with that data? We're all in this mindset of collecting it, but it's what do you do with it once you have it? Kathy gave a good example. I love her story. I always have to say she was my first phone call to Top Tracer. Right?
Fastest sale and install ever.
Yeah. But I think what's important is, and it's interesting to hear John's story because you create the physical driving range, you install the tech, and you think it's this, if you build it, they will come sooner, right? And to an extent, that is true. Yeah. But where I and our team are really transparent to say, we believe in our product and the technology and how it can grow the game and bring more diversity to your audience. But it still only gets 50% of the way there. Right? You've still got to put it to work. And I think through this process, we try to be honest to say, who on your team or who can you bring into your team that is going to be dedicated to this operation, that is going to be there from the true operation side of the range itself and from the marketing standpoint. And going back to the data point, or the data discussion is you can have all this data, right? And it's going to tell you what they purchased in terms of food, who they are in terms of their age, their sex, their skill level, or what have you. But that's on that marketing guru or that range operator at the end of the day to truly be the creative genius behind how you're going to market that. Whether it's hot dogs on Tuesdays, a ladies' night on Wednesdays, a junior league that could be on Thursdays, or if you see that long drive is getting a lot of play, maybe you can put a contest together on one of your downtimes. A lot of that still has to come from that range guru who's going to own that relationship as much as Johan and his technology has provided that data. There's still got to be somewhere to meet in the middle, right? So I think that's where we try to be transparent is to say, we love our technology, we believe in our technology, who's going to own this on your range and truly be the expert, not only in terms of how you market and collect and then generate, you know, different offers in terms of marketing, whether it's email, text, or what have you. That's just incredibly important. And then who is physically there on the range from time to time that can go out there and shake hands and talk to families and make sure they're going through all the different game modes and options. And we didn't really talk about a top tracer coach and how they could be involved with clinics or lessons that integrate top tracer. So I think that's just a big takeaway to take away from this is we believe in our technology, but it's just as important for us to be transparent to say we want someone there to build on the relationship from the inside and be able to be our cheerleader and our backs, be out on the range. And from a marketing standpoint, collect all that data and interpret you who know your community the best and who your demographic is to translate that into marketing offers that make sense for your customer.
Yeah, you really do in some cases need a champion. Like you can build it and they will come, you'll earn something because you're gonna ultimately raise your prices, right? But having like that champion on course or on the range is beneficial. I know customers have hired somebody specifically to focus on leads or focus on the range specifically. I remember one of our first customers, I said, hey, how did you decide who this, you know, this person was that was going to be part of the range experience? And he goes, well, he had a little bit of personality and a little bit of geekiness as far as tech goes. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever works for you. So, I mean, whatever it is that you're looking for, people are there to have a good time. I can't remember anybody that said, wow, it was a really bad time unless you hit a bad golf shop and then you hit the one that brings you back. Anyway, Rock.
My name's Rock. I'm dead.
We're here to help you.
I have a PTSD from 2008 financial crash. And the fish scared the hell out of me. And it was pretty much fake cash for everything. But I tried to sit back in the room so I get you a call on it. It didn't work very well. I believe it was you that didn't want to eat your Zoom room or something like that. Yeah, it's awesome. You went into the face sizes and had the market page and panels and replacement screens and things like that. That's excellent, by the way. Without F&B, what was your investment in, I think you said you had 15, 17 days. What was your investment and how long before you got the return on investment without F&B? I don't want to take back on anything less.
So let's just say for in round terms, within 3 years from the ROI perspective, the revenue created. But now you're saying without F&B though.
Yeah.
So I'd have to back out a huge component of that because the range itself, the cost associated with the range is for us was pretty significant because we had to develop the land around it. We're also in the flood zone where we are towards Cape Cod, so it's all kinds of other costs associated with it. But the driving range building itself is reasonable. I'm going to throw less than 500 grand to build the structure, the piece. The revenues are almost heavily weighted. I would go 80-20 on the food and beverage. That's really impressive.
What was your range revenue and then what was your range revenue first year, second year?
So by the time we got into the third year, we were eclipsing our total investment in that whole part of it. Yeah, just in gross revenue terms.
And typically what we've seen, if you're going from ground up, like you're going structure, bay dividers, mats, balls, everything, like 3 years is about what we've heard. Like, I mean, obviously depending on where you're at, California versus New York, things like that. But I mean, I know this is some people don't always agree with this, but we have so many successful places that don't have F&B, or they have something simple like a pizza oven. I think Kathy said one of the best investments she made was a pizza oven, right? Like they just want something, right? Like don't give them a reason to go somewhere else and spend their dollars.
Kathy, so it's close, but I don't want to bet on anything unless we make it.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
18 months for me.
You have a question?
Can you go back to the slide that was up before? This one, I realize this is a schematic and not probably the way it's actually set up. But, so multi-part question. Can you take me through, I'm interested in the friction of people interacting with this. Can you take me through what a customer does? That's one question. How to get there. Number two, if you have a golf course associated with this, and how do you price out somebody wants to warm up? That's kind of two. And 2A, what if I got people that want to hit off bricks? Do you have a separate spot for that, or do you worry about that, or don't care about that? And 3, what's the general reaction from, like, I want to play golf and I want to warm up. Do they go from the top tracer to the first tee, or is it separate? Is it a separate activity?
I can go with the hurdles that we can see here. As I mentioned before, I think everything starts with footprint. You need to have an app, you know. So if you're a first timer coming there, you will go to the screen, so you will get, oh, this is, I need to download, I need to get access to my account. So I need to create an account, even if you're an old dispenser at the payment terminal or at the top prices screen, I need to create an account, right?
Before you would get to the site?
No, not before you get to the
Okay.
site, but when you're at the site. And I believe that's when you have the most friction in the beginning, because you're eager, you just want to get going, right? And it's like, oh, so that's why in our onboarding, we support our customers a lot with, you know, helping them to send out adoption exercises to the customers already in the beginning, they go live. So we have, you know, an 80% adoption rate that everyone has the app, because then they have the player data, right? So they're happy about that. And then whenever they are coming, they don't have the friction. So that's the first. When it comes to the walk-ups, I will let you answer to make sure that it's technical-wise.
I'll give you a couple of other use cases. Let's talk about the guy that just comes in, he just wants to go first. So our driving range is located in between the first and 10th. So it's a natural for warm-up. We do starts on front and back. That's how it runs. So if you get a tea time, you get show up 10 minutes before, you're probably just going to hit a bucket of balls. They're not even using the top tracer in that case. And by the time they turn it on, they're just warming up. Now, conversely, there's another player he's already in the system, he's got his name, he or she, and they're working on how far am I hitting my 700 today? What's my spin rate? They have all their technology, they've been saving it. Every time they practice there, they have it recorded, and so now they're warming up and they're absolutely logging in and taking a look at it. So that's just two different types of usage. Anybody can participate in any way they want, given that. It's not that gamification part of it is really hardcore data for that individual who can really work on the game. And I think God bless Topgolf, they created this big buzz for us, but you don't go to Topgolf to work on your game. That's purely entertainment. You go to a top tracer to improve, to work on your game, have lessons there, so it's a different environment for many users. The green grass golf or drive, we do not have the option today. That comes up pretty rarely for us, and I would say that, not being biased, but we're a public course. Those are usually the real hardcore player that really wants to. You can get the mats are super sophisticated. Top Tracer changes those mats on a regular basis, part of the relationships. We always have brand new mats when they come through. They're state of the art, so you never have complaints about, you know, the mats with holes in them. It's out of our hands. So we really haven't had many complaints or issues about, hey, can I hit off of grass? But I understand there are people that really want that in the game.
Historically, what we've seen is whether it's private, daily fee, people are moving away from grass. And the more people, they're going to the mats for an experience, right? That on-screen experience. A lot of people love that they can see how far the ball travels by looking at the screen as opposed to relying on their vision that might be failing throughout the years. But at any rate, they're foregoing the grass experience. That takes a lot off of the operator's plate from not having to make sure you have grass growing all the time. And I understand there's always going to be the facilities that are known for grass specifically, but even on the private side, people are just sectioning off a part of their range where they have 4 or 5 covered bays and putting in outdoor monitors, eventually using that revenue to build a structure over the top. So it is definitely something that we're seeing a trend more and more now.
I said that too. Just to answer that question further, you can think about it as it's a driving range during the day up to a point, and then it converts to that family-friendly entertainment. And people come in for lunch, and now someone will come in for lunch on the lunch break, hit a bucket of balls, have something to eat, go back to work, and then by 2, 3 in the afternoon, we're now booking solid with the events. And we always leave room for walk-ups so that if someone wants to warm up before their tea time, but our last tea time, especially this time of year, getting until 5:30 or 6, so that pretty much it converts over, and then at nighttime it's all just.
This quick follow-up.
Yep, go ahead.
I have a driving range in our neighborhood, or in our market, that charges $3 more to get off grass
Oh yeah.
as opposed to mats.
Yeah.
And that's the side that's busy, just FYI.
Yeah.
When people are doing the warm-up, are they just buying a bucket of balls
Yep.
and using the bag?
Yep.
And then if they activate it, that's a separate charge?
No, They can choose to, we don't charge anything for that. It's
Just
part of
about the balls or the.
just a
the
bucket of
unit
balls. You can buy,
revenue?
you can do a $5 bucket for warm up, or a $10 bucket for warm up, or a large ball set. So it's that option. When we switch over to nights, we book by the hour. So we reserve, I think, an hour and a half, 2 hours. You can put 2 couples together, so you can have rent 2 bays, you're gonna have a party of 8 and have the place. So you would change, it switches depending on the customer base, but anybody can walk.
These are great conversations, great questions. Happy to continue them outside in the hall. We are done with our time for today. I know who's next door wrapping up. I don't want to keep you guys long, but thank you guys so much for coming.